Victorian farmers, as we've seen during the day, have taken their fight against these transmission projects that are going to be massive to the steps of Victorian Parliament today. There was around 40 tractors. They say, of course, that the Western Renewables Link and Victoria to New South Wales interconnector projects would smash their farms, devalue their land. I spoke to a farmer earlier in the week who had his farm devalued by $1.5 million. And have a look at them. They were fired up on their anti-green crusade against climate change. Have a look at this.
They're only good for as long as the wind is blowing and the sun is shining.
These things are just destroying our rural amenity.
I think the broader overseas models are telling us that wind and solar aren't going to provide the power we need in Australia anyhow, so it will be a dead-end thing eventually.
These renewables will not have generated as much energy by the time they collapsed in 20, 25 years than it took to produce them, and it all goes to China.
Just let me, put this in your mind. Imagine if somebody suddenly said they wanted to stick a wind turbine in your backyard of your suburban house. You wouldn't be happy, and you would expect compensation. The farmers are not about compensation. They're about heritage and history. Gerald Fenny is one of those farmers. Gerald, the protest today I thought was very effective. I thought all of the people speaking on behalf of the farming community argued their point extremely well. Where do we go from here on this?
Well, we're going to government, Steve. That's the main thing. We're finished talking to AEMO. We want to talk to the Victorian government. We want to talk to VicGrid about this. We've dealt with AEMO. We're finished with them. We need to talk to the state government, talk about transmission future in Victoria. We want to be part of that, but don't drop it on our head out of the blue in March and tell us we're coming through with a transmission line. We're not going to be part of that.
Give us a personal insight into what this might do to you or your neighbours.
Well, what it's going to do is really disrupt our whole communities and our land. These projects take years to build. You've got big construction coming over your properties, compacting your soils, knocking down trees. I mean, we had Lydia Thorpe there talking about a tree on the Western Highway there, which has been vandalised, which is a bad thing. But this project is going to knock down tens of thousands of trees on its way through. Are those trees valuable or not? 300-year-old red gums growing along rivers and creeks are going to be cleared for this transmission line. And if the Greens are not going to tie themselves to bulldozers, we are as farmers. We're going to protect our land. We're going to protect our food production. We're going to protect our environment.
Does that talk about locking gates and denying access?
Certainly is. They hope to use Section 93, the Essential Services Commission Act. Now, that's only in a draft form. That hasn't been put forward yet. AEMO hasn't got, and TCV, which is a company they're using to liaise with farmers, have not got a licence to enter our land at this moment. So we're not interested. They're not coming on. We will deal with Victorian government. We will deal with VicGrid. It's a state issue. We're not interested in federal bodies.
I've been around a long time, Gerald, and I've seen a lot of farmer actions against actions that they don't want to happen. You can go back and think live cattle exports, all of that stuff. And I think governments by themselves are really bad argument when they take on the farming community, because the general public, the people who live in the big cities who are not going to be impacted by that, really sensible people, have a great deal of sympathy for you. Do you feel that the public's with you?
Well, I do. They haven't been aware at no stage as the community or the city community being consulted. They haven't been made aware of it. We're surprised it's happening. No one in the city knows the scope of what they're going to do. Hundreds of thousands of hectares, millions of hectares. When does it stop? But there's another plan out there which has been put forward by Professor Bruce Mountain and Simon Bartlett, which is called Plan B. And it uses existing easements, and it's a better plan. It needs to be assessed. It needs to be looked at as an independent, costed plan against AEMO's big build. And that's what we're asking the government to do. That's what we're asking Minister Lily D'Ambrosio to do. That's what we're asking VicGrid to do, is be part of that. Have a look at this alternative plan. We're willing to work with you, but don't bulldoze us, don't force us. It's not going to work.
I drove through part of Western Australia at the end of last year, about 3 hours north of Perth, where they've had to plough these transmission lines through wheat country. Now, you'd know that country probably. There's not a lot of trees there. It's fairly flat. They looked horrendous in that sort of atmosphere, in that sort of real estate, let alone carving it through northwest and western Victoria, where, as you say, you've got massive trees that are going to be felled for this thing.
Well, I was standing outside our hay shed and I was looking down at the hills of St Arnaud. I was looking the other side to some hills and up towards Mount Jephcott near Donald. And I thought to myself, is this the last time I'm going to look at this wonderful view, this lovely vistas when the sun goes down, the sun comes up in the morning? It's magnificent. You know, people in Melbourne in the future that hook onto their caravans and head up to the bush, head up to the rivers, head up to our lakes, what are they going to be seeing? They're going to be seeing power lines, they're going to be seeing turbines, they're going to be seeing solar. We can do it, but we need to do it in concert with farmers, and don't just bring us in at the last moment. It's just not good enough.
Gerald, anything we can do to help you, please get in touch with us. I'm going to write about this in the Herald Sun on the weekend. I know Peter Credlin's on board big time. They won't get away with it. We'll make a lot of noise, Gerald. Thank you for joining us tonight. That's Gerald Fenny, and that's just appalling what they're trying to do to those people and to their livelihoods.